DSG first. Does that mean I'm introing it?
No, I mean, unless if you want to.
I'll just do the transition. Will you chant?
Sure.
Okay. They will chant the whole thing with you. I typically do it back and forth. You chant, I'll chant.
Yeah.
You chant, like,
Yes.
they'll do all of it.
Yeah. Do you want me to start the chanting?
I do.
Great.
Because
And then I know that you haven't been feeling well. Do you want me to do all of it, or do you want to do?
no, I'm okay. And I think the Claritin D is helping.
Claritin's amazing.
Great. Amazing. Blah, blah. Okay. Give it one more minute.
Here's a question for you. Do you have a preference for which nusach I'm going to use?
Totally up to you.
Okay. Do they ever use actual morning, Shabbat morning?
What is the actual Shabbat morning?
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan us ha'avivina, ha'chavim min yom u'vin la'ayla.
And what's the other one that they would probably do?
Torah. That's the Torah blessing. No, I'm saying you're right.
Oh, okay.
But that's the tune
That's
for
the one
the
they.
Torah blessing.
That's the one they do. I think. It's a week. They do weekday.
Great. That's not actually. That's not weekday either.
What is it?
That's not weekday either. Yeah, that's just the melody of the Torah blessing.
Great.
Great. I'll do that one.
Jill and Barbara. Do you know? And they would like an Aliyah. Okay. Barbara, I'm gonna have them do this. Yeah. Do you know what anniversary it is? Let me say hi to these people, and then we'll start right now.
On page 74. Ma tovu, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenatecha Yisrael, ma tovu, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenatecha Yisrael, v'ani berov chastecha, avo beitecha, eshtachavei elecha kodshecha, ve'yiratecha. Ma tovu, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenatecha Yisrael. Adonai Avti me'on metecha u'mekon mishkan kivadecha mishkan kivadecha va'ani eshtachaveh v'echra Evrecha lifnei Adonai osi ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkinotecha Yisrael tefilati lecha Adonai et ratzon Elohim berov chastecha Elohim berov chastecha Aneni be'emet yishecha ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkinotecha Yisrael mishkinotecha Yisrael.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
We are in a special time of the Jewish calendar, having just observed Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av, in which you remember the destruction of the two temples and other tragedies that have befallen the Jewish people. And in the 7 weeks between Tisha B'Av and Rosh Hashanah, we have special haftorahs, special portions from our prophets that are called the haftarot of consolation. These are readings that are designed to comfort us as we head from Tisha B'Av into Rosh Hashanah. It's a really beautiful part of our liturgical calendar that is designed to remind us on each Shabbat that we move closer towards the beginning of a new year and the end of a year. And so this Shabbat is that first Shabbat between Tisha B'Av and Rosh Hashanah, Shabbat Nachamu, a Shabbat of comfort. And that's my prayer for all of us today, that this is just Shabbat of comfort, that this is a space of blessing and of peace, a space of consolation, a space where we can just be, where we can let go of everything else happening in the world, happening in our lives, and just sink into this moment, these few moments of prayer and song, of community and friendship, and get to be in this place and present in this moment. We're going to continue with Elohai Neshama on page 78, the blessing that thanks God for returning our souls to us.
Elohai, Elohai Neshama Shenatata bi tehorai Elohai, Elohai Neshama Shenatata bi tehorai Ata verata, ata yetzarta, ata nefachta bi ve'ata meshamra bekirbi Elohai, Elohai Neshama Shenatata bi tehorai Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bar yado nefesh kol chai ברוח כל בשרי.
Amen. Page 80 for Nasim B'chol Yom.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר נתן לשכבי בינה להבחין בין יום ובין לילה.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam pokeach ivrim.
אמן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם מתיר אסורים.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam zokef kefufim.
אמן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם רוקה הארץ על המים.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamechin mitzadei gaver.
אמן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם מלביש ערומים.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hanoten le'ayev koach.
אמן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם המעביר שינה מעיני ותנומה מעפעפיי.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shasani b'tselem Elohim.
אמן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם שעשני בן חורים.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shasani Yisrael.
אמן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם עוזר ישראל בגבורה.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam oter Yisrael b'tifara.
אמן.
Page 94, Baruch She'amar, blessed is the one who spoke and the world came to be.
ברוך שאמר והיה העולם, ברוך הוא. ברוך עושה וראשית, ברוך אומר ועושה. ברוך גוזר מקיים, ברוך מרחם על הארץ, ברוך מרחם על הבריות, ברוך משלם שכר טוב לרעיו. ברוך הילד וקיים לנצח, ברוך פודה ומציל, ברוך שמו. משפחות ופזמרות נגלתך ונשרפך ונפררך ולהזכיר שמך ולהמליכך מלכנו אלוהינו. יחיד כעולמים, מלך משובח ומפואר, עד שמו הגדול. ברוך אתה אדוני, מלך מהולל בתשבחות. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון. להגיד בבוקר חסדך, ואמונתך בלילות, עלי עשור ועלי נבל, עלי היגיון בכינור. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון. כי שמחתני אדוני בפועלך, במעשה ידיך השבת, טוב ותודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולשמך עליון.
Psalm 150, page 100.
Hallelujah, 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 el bekodsho, hallelujah, bekiravutso, hallelujah, begvorotav, hallelujah, gerov kulo. Hallelujah, 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 beteka shofar, hallelujah, benevel vechinor, hallelujah, betofo machol, hallelujah, benini benugav. Hallelujah, 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 betzilza leshama, hallelujah, betzilza letrua, kol hanshama tehallelujah, kol hanshama tehallelujah. Kol hanashama tehallelujah, hallelujah. Kol hanashama tehallelujah, hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.
Please rise as we turn to Baruch, our call to worship, on page 108.
Baruch et Adonai HaMelorah. Baruch Adonai HaMelorah, HaMelorah le'olam va'ed. HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, yotzer or uvarei choshech, oseh shalom uvarei etakol, hama'ir la'aretz v'ladarim aleha barachamim, uvtuvo machadesh b'chol yom tamid ma'aseh v'reshit, ma'arabu ma'asecha Adonai, kulam b'chochma asita, mal'ah ha'aretz kinyanecha, titbarach Adonai Eloheinu, al shevach ma'aseh yadecha, ve'al ma'arei or shasita yifarucha sela, or chadash al tzion ta'ir, v'niskeh chulanu mehera le'oro, Baruch atah Adonai, yotzer ha'me'orot.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kivon
please be seated. Ve'ahavta, page 116.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברתם בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשופך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
We continue with our freedom song, Mi Chamocha, on page 122.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש. נורא תהילות כוסף אלה, נורא תהילות כוסף אלה, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. שירה חדשה שיבחו גאולים, לשמך שפת הים, יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. יאי לי 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 לי, יאי לי 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 לי, יאי לי 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 לי, יאי לי 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 לי. צור ישראל, קומה בעזרת ישראל, ופדייכנו ממך יודעת וישראל. גואלנו אדוני צבאות שמו, קדוש ישראל. ברוך אתה אדוני, גאל ישראל.
Please rise for the Amidah, page 124.
אדוני שפתי תפתח ופי תהילתך. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov. Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah. Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon. Go melech hasadim tovim, v'koneh hakol, mizachech hastei avot v'imahot, u'mevi geula livnei v'nehem, leman shemo be'ahava, melech hozer u'moshiach u'magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah. Atah yipol leolam Adonai, mechayei hakol atah, Rav lehoshia. Morid atah. מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ולמצמיח ישוע, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי הכל. Lai la lai 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 la lai 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 la lai 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 la lai 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 la lai 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 נקדש את שמך בעולם כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום ככתוב על יד נביאך וקרא זה לזה ואמר קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות מלוא כל הארץ כבודו עתיד אדירנו אדוני אדוננו מתיר שמך בכל הארץ ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו אחד הוא אלוהינו, הוא אבינו מלכנו, הוא מושיענו והוא ישמיענו, ברחמיו לעיני כל חי. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, ימלוך אדוני לעולם. אלוהיך ציון לדור ודור. הללויה, 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 הללויה. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש, ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש.
Please be seated as we take a few moments for silent prayer and meditation.
As Rabbi Goldberg said earlier, our Torah portions and Haftarot for the next coming weeks all deal with comfort and consolation. And the text for this next piece is not found within our prayer book, but is instead comes from our Haftarot for today. Nachamu, comfort us. Nachamu, Nachamu, Ani Yomar Eloheihem. Nachamu, Nachamu, Ami Yomar Eloheihem. Nachamu, Nachamu, Ami Yomar Eloheihem. Nachamu, Nachamu, Ami Yomar Eloheihem. Comfort us in our wilderness. Comfort us as we struggle to take care of one another. Comfort us in our wilderness. Comfort us as we struggle in this world. Nachamu, Nachamu, Ami Yomar Eloheihem. Nachamu, Nachamu, Ami Yomar Eloheihem. Nachamu, Nachamu, Ami Yomar Eloheihem. Nachamu, Nachamu, Ami Yomar Eloheihem.
With those beautiful words ringing in our ears, we turn now to our Torah service as we prepare to take Torah out of the Ark. We will continue on page 244. I invite you to rise as you are able.
Ein kamocha v'Elohim Adonai ve'ein kema'asecha malachotecha malachut kol olamim u'memshaltecha b'chodor v'andor Adonai melech Adonai malach Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed Adonai yoz le'amo yitein Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom Avarachamim et virtzoncha et Zion Tivnei chomot Yerushalayim Kivecha levar patachnu Melech el ram venisa Adon olami Ki mitzion tetze Torah Ki mitzion tetze Torah Udevar Adonai Merushalayim Baruch Shenatan Torah, Torah. Baruch Shenatan Torah, Torah. Le'amo Yisrael Mikdushato. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Echad Eloheinu Gadol Adoneinu Gadol Shemo. Echad Eloheinu Gadol Adoneinu Gadol Shemo. Garelul Adonai iti uneromema shemo yagdav. Lecha Adonai hagedula ve'agevura ve'hatiferet ve'hanetzach ve'ahud. Ki kol bashamayim uvaret, ki kol bashamayim uvaret. Lecha Adonai hamamlecha ve'amitnaseh lechol rosh. Romemu, romemu, romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu ve'hakadoshu. Romemu, romemu, romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lehar kodsho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu, ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu. Romemu, romemu, romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lehar kodesho. Here's one.
Okay, we found the yod. Somebody hid it for us. We are going to read this morning from Parshat Va'et-Hanan and from a portion, as we've been saying, from Haftorah known as Nachamu. And before we call up our Torah readers, I'd like to invite up Carl to share a few words about this Torah portion, and then I'll invite up our first Torah chanter, Naomi Toder.
So Naomi is going to chant the Decalogue shortly. And the very last of the Ten Commandments leaves us to understand what is meant by covet. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or his male or female slave, or his ox or his ass, or anything that is your neighbor. Is covet an attitude or an action? Many scholars maintain that coveting means what it sounds like, the internal state of desiring something or someone that belongs to someone else. And the reasoning is that coveting is an attitude that makes the rest of the violations possible. The 10th commandment goes beyond the world of action, going to our inner lives. Maimonides ties the prohibition on coveting to acting upon that desire, but other commentators maintain that the prohibition against coveting lies not in the deed, but in the heart. Why is this commandment especially relevant in this time of year? We atone for our actions, we atone for falling short in inaction, but we rarely talk about our desires in our run-up to Yom Kippur. But managing our desires is the root of a good part of atonement.
For our first aliyah, we are reading from Deuteronomy chapter 5, verses 6 through 18. It's on page 1196 in the Plaut Torah commentary, if you'd like to follow along. Traditionally, when the Decalogue, when the 10 Commandments are read in a community, we invite the kahal, the community, to stand while these are being read as the Israelites stood as they received the 10 Commandments. So if I want to invite you to partake in this tradition, if you are able, I invite you to rise as I invite forward Naomi as our Torah reader and Steve for the honor of our first aliyah. Nalamod, aliyah rishona.
Can you do it, honey?
Yes.
Let me see where it is. I get at least.
Baruch hu et Adonai habarach.
Baruch Adonai habarach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai habarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher b'chabanu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai notein haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Anochi Adonai Elohecha asher hotzeiticha me'eretz Mitzrayim mi'beit avadim lo yiyeh lecha Elohim acherim al panai lo tahaseh lecha fesel kol timuna asher bashamayim Mimal v'asher ba'aretz mitachat v'asher b'mayim mitachat la'aretz lo tishtacha ve'elahem v'lo to'avdem ki anochi Adonai Elohecha Elkanah hoked Avon avod al banim val shileshim val ribeim l'sona'ah ve'oseh chesed la'alafim lo havayu shomarei mitzvotai lo tisa et shem Adonai Elohecha lasham ki lo yinakeh Adonai asher yisa et shemo lashav shamor et yom hashabat lakadasho b'asher tzivacha Adonai Elohecha sheshet yamim tahavod v'hasita kol melachtecha V'yom hashavi Shabbat l'Adonai Elohecha lo tahaseh chol melacha ata umicha uvitecha v'anvecha ba'amatecha v'shoracha v'chamoracha v'chol behemtecha V'geracha asher bisharecha leman yanuach avdecha v'amatecha kamocha v'zacharta כי עבד היית בארץ מצרים, ויוציאך אדוני אלוהיך משם ביד חזקה ובזרוע נטויה. על כן ציווך אדוני אלוהיך לעשות את יום השבת. כבד את אביך ואת אמך, כאשר ציווך אדוני אלוהיך, למען יאריכון ימיך, ולמען ייטב לך על האדמה אשר אדוני אלוהיך נותן לך. לא תרצח ולא תנאף ולא תגנוב ולא תהנה ברעך את שווא ולא תחמוד אשת רעך ולא תחווה בית רעך. שדהו ועבדו ואמתו שורו וחמורו וכל אשר לרעך. Thank you.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'hayei olam natav v'tuchenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Yasher koach. Thank you. Thanks for coming up here. Please be seated. For our second aliyah, we turn to Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 1 through 9. And it's my honor to invite up Francine Lahat to be our Torah chanter. And for the honor of our second aliyah, I'd like to invite Jill and Barbara forward, who are celebrating an anniversary. And we're so excited to be able to call them to Torah in honor of this anniversary. Nala Mod Aliyah Sheni. What anniversary is it? 22. It's good when you can't remember. That's good. That means it's been a long time. That's good. Come on in. Oh, we are on. Thank you. We are on page something. What is it? 1201. Thank you. Team effort.
Shema?
Okay, you ready?
6-1, right?
No, I'm doing Shema. I'm starting with Shema.
You're starting with Shema, so you're not starting with 6-1. You're starting with
6-4.
6-4. Apologies.
No worries.
Which is the one column over. This is why we check. Shema.
There it is. Easy. Baruch Adonai Hambarach Leolam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach Leolam Vaed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Toratav. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu
Amen.
Amen. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Ve'avta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavcha ubechol nafshecha ubechol meyodecha. Ve'hayu hadevarim ha'ela asher anochi mitzavecha hayam alevavecha vishinantam levanecha v'dibartam bam beshivtecha bevetecha uvlechtecha vaderech ushachbecha ubekumecha ukshaktam leot al yadecha vehayu letotafot beinenecha uftavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvisharet
ata Adonai Eloheinu melech olam asher nasan lanu Toras emes b'chaye olam nata b'solchenu Baruch ata Adonai nosein haTorah.
Amen. Yasher koach, mazel tov. With Torah in our midst, we take a moment to offer prayers of healing for those in our community, for those in our hearts, for all those whose names we don't know. Today, our community is praying for Sandy Sarabin, Tracy Lustig, Cassie Lustig, Paulette Cohane, Patricia Horn, Stephen Schwinder, Perry Soskin, Mark Miller, Ellen Kirshner, Paul Biddleman, Tom Lee, Ricky Dessen, Debbie Plotz-Pierce, Ari Guinor, Stephen Lappin, Lainey Wasker, Ruth Stober, David Perman, Elaine Herrick, Stanley Reefer, Judy Garber, Sandra K. Wasserman, Leonard Sofer, and Mary Cosgrove. Are there additional names to add to our healing prayers this Shabbat? Robin? Thank you. Thank you. Harriet? Thank you. Susan? Thank you. Arlene? Thank you. Robin? Thank you. Naomi? Thank you. Maxine? Thank you. Thank you. We join together in the words of Misha Berach, page 253.
Misha Berach Avoteinu Mekor HaBracha Leimoteinu. May the source of strength bless the ones before us. Help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mekor habracha lamoteinu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
Together we say, Amen. Now it's an honor to invite Francine back to chant our last aliyah for us, Deuteronomy chapter 7, verses 9 through 11. It's on page 1204. And for the honor of our third aliyah, I'd like to invite forward Myra, who had a new grandbaby this week. And so we're so honored to get to call her to Torah in honor of this new grandchild. Nala Amod, Aliyah Shlishi. Does the grandbaby have a name yet? Theo, little baby Theo.
I'd also like to say Shabbat Nachamu is special to me because my name is Nechama. But thank you for the aliyah for my new grandson, born 2 days ago. Where are we? Baruch hu et Adonai HaMvarach.
Baruch Adonai HaMarach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMvarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim V'natan lanu et Torato, Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. V'yadata ki Adonai Elohecha hu ha-Elohim ha-El ha-Ne'eman shomer ha-brit ve'ha-chesed le'ohavav u'shamrei mitzvotav le'elif dor Shalem lesonav el panav le'ahavido lo ya'acher leson el panav yishalem Yishalem lo vesham veshamat Ta et ha-mitzvah v'yet ha-chukim v'yet ha-mishpatim asher anochi mitzavecha hayom la'asotam.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nota b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
I invite us to rise as we lift Torah, V'zot HaTorah, on the bottom of page 252. Are you cool to lift? Go for it.
V'zot HaTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael al pi Adonai b'yad Moshe.
An extra special thanks to Justin for lifting Torah when it's uneven. I only like to lift Torah when we're in the middle. So thank you very much. For our half Torah today, I'd like to invite forward Carl, who's going to be our chanter. You can find the half Torah for Parshat Va'et Hanan on page 1222.
Oh, yes. So, Rabbi Goldberg kind of introduced this portion, so I'm just going to go right in. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nvi'im tovim v'ratza v'divreihem hane'emarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai Habocher b'Torah u'Moshe avdo u'Yisrael amo u'v'nvi'ei ha'emet v'tzedek. Nachamu, Nachamu Ami, Yomar Elohechem, Dabru Alev Yerushalayim, V'kir'u Eleha, Ki mal'at tzva'ah, Ki nirtza avona, Ki lakcha mi'ad Adonai, Kif layim b'chol hatoteha. Kol koreh bamidbar, Panu derech Adonai, Yashru arava, Mesila leloheinu, Kol ge yinaseh, V'chol har, V'giv'ah yishpalu, V'haya he'akov lemishor, V'har kasim levika. V'nigla kavod Adonai, V'ra'u chol basar yakdav, Ki Pi Adonai diber, Kol omer kira, V'amar ma ekra, Kol habasar hatzir, V'chol chazdo ketzitz hasadeh. Yavesh chatzir navel tzitz, Ki ruach Adonai nashva bo, Achen hatzir hayam. Yavesh chatzir navel tzitz, Udevar Eloheinu yakum leolam. And now I'm on page 1225. She'u marom enechem ur'u mivara ele hamotzi b'mizpar tziva'am lechulam b'shem yikra merov onim ve'amit koach ish lo nedar. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, tzur kol haolamim, tzadik b'chol hadorot, ha'el ha'ne'eman, ha'omer ve'oseh, ha'medaber u'mekayim, shechol devarav emet v'tzedek, al haTorah ve'al ha'avodah, ve'al hanvi'im ve'al yom ha'shabbat hazeh. Shenatata lanu Adonai Eloheinu likdusha ve'limnucha, lichavod ultifaret. Al hakol Adonai Eloheinu, anachnu modim lach, umevarchim otach. Yitbarach shimcha b'fi kol chai, tamid le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. Amen.
I invite us to rise as we return Torah to the Ark, Eitz Chaim on page 256.
עץ חיים היא למחזיקים בה ותומכיה מאושר דרכיה דרכי נועם וכל נתיבותיה שלום. השיבנו אדוני אליך ונשובה חדש חדש ימינו חדש ימינו כקדם.
Page 282 for Aleinu.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמענו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וקור עלינו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
Please be seated. Our thoughts turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. Today, our community is remembering those who have died in recent days: Stephen Bauman, Joseph Abada, Lois Levitt, Bernard Rosen, Jane Wisen, and Phyllis Rackback. Are there additional names to remember in the period of Shiv'ah, the first 7 days? In the period of Shloshim, the first 30 days? In the period of Shana, the first year of mourning? Thank you. Thank you. Scott. Thank you. Arlene. Thank you. Today, we also observe the yahrzeits of Michael Barish, Dr. David Belgray, Ira Bressler, Arthur Brody, Rebecca Chalfin, May Dickman, Herbert Ide, Herbert Fanger, Arnold D. Friedman, Steffi Friedman, Max Goodman, Irv Gottbaum, Ruth Iskowitz Grobard, Leo Greenbob, Maurice A. Greenfield, Ann Slater Greenwald, Louis Halpern, Gerson L. Hudis, Bertha Hyman, Hannah Hyman, Solomon Hyman, Charles Ivy, Stanley D. Josephson, Joseph Kahn, Marilyn Kahn, Ronald I. Cantor, Ethel Brett Kapla, Goldie Kaufman, Arlene Kearney, Aviva Isabel Kirsch, Henry Hank Koval, Max Kraft, Louis Krantz, Irene Kubacki, Sarah Mandel Lakin, Lee Landman, Vera Lefkowitz, Abe Lewis, Peggy Lipton, Musia Manchik, Nellie Markovitz, Dorothy Marmelstein, Leopold S. Meyer, Harry Merrilson, Milton Mogul, Joseph Nemzer, Max Newman, Geraldine M. Pearson, Margaret Poser, Adria Raskin, Donald H. Rifkin, Emmanuel Rohan, Harry Rosen, Abraham Rosenberg, Hannah Roth, Jack Rudolph, Selma Rudolph, Norman Schaffler, Ellie Sherrill, Eloise Ellie Shearman, Isaac Schlesinger, Douglas Schneiderman, Dr. J. Lee Schneiderman, Benjamin Shapiro, Louis Shulsky, Renee Simon, Bernard Solis, Joseph Kornbeck Sonneborn, Lazarus Stern, Shemai Sternberg, Douglas Stoner, Ralph Raphael Tomasis, Sandra Wadler, Henry Wallach, Bert W. Wasserman, Carl Frederick Emil Wimpheimer, Samuel Simon Winarski, Rosalie Salo Wolf, and Kenneth Wyman Florence Zickerman. Are there additional names to add to our memorial prayers this Shabbat? I invite us to rise as one community to recite the words of Mourner's Kaddish together, page 294. Yit Kadal, Vid Kadash, Shemei Rabbah. Bialma divrach chirute v'yamlich malchute b'chayachon uvyomechon uvchaye t'chol beit Yisrael ba'agala uvizman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabba mevarach le'olam olamei almaya yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitale v'yitalal shmei d'kudusha b'reichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata Tushbechata v'nechamata, Damiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Zichronam livracha, may their memories always be for a blessing.
Ose shalom bimrama, huyase shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imeru. Amen.
A couple of quick announcements before we vishamru and enjoy Kiddush and come back for a little bit of Torah study. Here at Road of Shalom, ensuring reproductive rights has been one of our major advocacy efforts. On Monday, August 14th at 7 p.m., you're invited to join us for a special program from the National Council of Jewish Women. We'll hear from Liz Zimmerman, community organizer for the Council's Jews for Repro New York campaign. This will be an informative program on advocacy, access, and rights issues relevant to New York. This will be on Zoom, and there will also be an opportunity for Q&A as a part of this session. We have a fun event planned for parents that are expecting and those that have recently become parents. We hope that they will join us for happy hour games and light bites on Tuesday evening, August 15th. It's a great introduction to Sholom Sprouts, which if you don't know them, you've heard them sometimes doing Shabbat right as we're getting started here. Details about all of this and our upcoming programs are on the CRS website, in CRS News, in your inbox. So I will invite us to conclude and process with Vishamru out to the lobby where we'll join for a little oneg. Yeah. Yeah.
First of all, just as a reminder, December 15th is the 150th anniversary of the URJ. It's going to be like biennial, as far as I can tell. You've all got, it was in the emails before. I hope people will sign up for it. It could be a lot of fun. The second thing is, we sent you out a speech, which are all gotten in your emails if you were on the thing, from the former head of IMPJ in Knesset, and if you haven't listened to it, you should, because it will give you a good example of what Moses must have spoken like when the golden came out, because he's really pissed. It's a great speech.
So check your email for the speech by the former head of IMPJ, Gilad Kariv, recent speech with everything going on in Israel. And as Henry said, a little far off from our announcements in August, there is a big celebration for the URJ in December. It's December 15th through 17th. It is a Shabbaton-style opportunity to gather with the Reform movement. Join Henry, join me, and Scott Hertz, and some other folks from CRS who are going. If you want more information, any of us would be happy to answer questions, and we are excited for the opportunity to get to gather again with the Reform movement. We'll come back here in 10-ish minutes, aspirationally, for a little bit of Torah study after Oneg.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני, עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, בורא פרי הגפן. Oh, what a beautiful challah falling out of the bag. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz.
Is that the same stand?
It's the same.
Oh, it just looks tiny.
I shrunk it.
It just looks shrunk. Okay. We are actually going to do Torah study with our prayer books. If you want to grab a prayer book, and let me find the right page. Shabbat morning. Where am I? Thank you for everything. I don't know when I'll see you again, but soon-ish. Great, thank you. Okay. What? I'll try and end around noon. Yeah. Oh, I think you should be fine. I don't know what else is happening today, but I can check when I get down there. Okay. People may continue to join us. I'm going to use this microphone because the other microphones, I think. Okay, we'll try this and see what happens. Okay, so if you want to go to page 109, and I'll tell you why we're using our prayer book today for our text study, because as we read just a little while ago, this Torah portion, in addition to the Ten Commandments, includes the words of Shema and Ve'ahavta. And these are words that are really, really familiar to a lot of us, and they're also sort of a cornerstone of Jewish theology and of Jewish practice today. So I thought we would take a look both at Shema and Ve'ahavta and the translation, but I want to start us with a little piece that sometimes gets overlooked because it's on the left side of the page and not a part of our traditional liturgy, and gives us a little bit of a chance to study something new and different. We are studying with our prayer books today as our text sheet. So if you want to grab a prayer book, we are on page 109. So there is this little blessing here. You'll recognize if they want. I'm no pressure, you know.
People may not know.
Oh, okay. I don't know, I always feel bad, like, bringing people, like, they're kibitzing. They're, you know, it's like part of the Shabbat experience, too. Okay. So, we're using our prayer book as our text sheet today. So if you want to grab a prayer book, we're on page 109. Because we are taking a look at an ancient blessing that was once said before reciting Shema, and by Shema I mean Shema and Ve'ahavta, and we're looking at this today because this week's Torah portion includes Shema Ve'ahavta, which is where that text comes from. So Shema ve'ahavta is one of the pieces of Torah that has been subsequently incorporated into liturgy. And there is an ancient blessing that we used to say before saying Shema. And I want us to take a look at that and the translation of ve'ahavta today to really dive in deep into a piece of Torah that has been incorporated into our liturgy. These two things go hand in hand, and a lot of Torah has influenced liturgy. Lots of liturgy has pieces from Tanakh, from Torah, Nevi'im, and Ketuvim, but Shema ve'ahavta is sort of the quintessential piece that comes from Torah that ends up being a part of everyday liturgy, and that is one of the first things that Jews learn in school or in religious life. So here's the blessing. You'll recognize the blessing formula. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al mitzvat kriyat shma lechamlicho b'lavev shalem u'yachdo b'lev tov Ul-avdo benefesh chafetza. Praised are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us how to recite the Shema, to declare wholeheartedly God's rule, to declare earnestly God is one, and to willingly worship God. Okay, so 109. So let's start with the words on the page. What do we notice about this blessing? What stands out to us? What is this blessing all about?
From the first line, praised are you, Adonai, you're praising God.
It's just the regular blessing formula, right?
It's God, yeah.
Yeah. Like this is a typical blessing. We recognize it. It's very similar to other blessings that we say.
They basically reworded the Shema, so you're kind of sort of saying it, and then you say what is actually.
So there's a
the
lot of
actual
overlapping.
Shema.
There's a lot of overlapping themes. Beautiful. Oh no, there's a stretch.
My question is how? How? I've never seen that. The use of the how to recite the blessing.
So where's the how piece? We read
It's
it.
in the commanding us how to recite the Shema, not just to recite it, but
But how?
and that
Great.
stands out.
Scott.
I just was struck by what I think is a bit of irony, having commanding us to do something willingly.
Yeah, there's a good question here about can you command someone to do something willingly? What's the balance here between commandedness and giving us the free will to recite this blessing?
What this blessing does is it says, do not take your creation and your capability to recite this prayer for granted.
Don't take the ability of of being able to recite this prayer for granted.
And that God has given us mitzvot. And I think one of the biggest mitzvot is to say the Shema every day. Yeah, but I agree. How can you command someone to willingly do something? But maybe, as I'm thinking now, maybe it's the repetition and the constant practice of doing something over and over and over again, that rather than being something you have to do, it becomes something you want to do.
So what's the role of prayer here as a part of this?
Well, I was struck by the word mitzvot, which we usually interpret as a good deed, but in Hebrew it means a commandment. And I wonder if we don't have some overlap there in what starts out as a commandment, an order, becomes just a good thing all by itself.
That what starts out as a commandment becomes a good thing that we should do commanded-wise. Francine, and then
Naomi, you said how, and I just reread it, because from the Torah, it's chanted differently than the way we sing it. Well, when you chant the Shema, it's Shema Adonai Eloheinu. It's chanted according to Torah trope, but we sing it, which is different.
The singing? Yeah. I don't know historically when, so Shema and V'ahavta have been a part of the prayer book for as long as the prayer book has existed. I don't know when the melody of Shema changed to be something that was composed versus something that was chanted. It's a great question, I don't know the answer.
Yeah.
So the Shema and the V'ahavta, are they sung differently in different strains of Judaism, different like Orthodox or conservative?
So V'ahavta in the prayer book is chanted according to Torah trope. There are slight differences in certain kinds of trope, but they're relatively the same. Shema, as Francine, you want to chant it for us as you chanted?
It's Shema is Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
That's very different than
But, no, I mean, the words are different, but I'm saying that the trope is similar in the second part of how we sing it.
The trope is the same as V'ahavta. It's the same as the V'ahavta trope, but it's not necessarily how we sing it. Today we sang Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. There's also Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu. That's a modern melody. There's the Debbie Friedman other one, right? It's a good test. There's a bunch of Shema melodies that are not the chanting, and yet V'ahavta, for the most part, not always, stays as the Torah trope. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha v'chol me'odecha. If you can chant Ve'ahavta, you can actually chant most of Torah, because if you could isolate if you could isolate the trope on Ve'ahavta, you know how it should sound on another word. It's hard, you have to have the ear for it, but Ve'ahavta has a good chunk of the trope of Torah. Okay, I want to get to Robin.
Well, I want to go back to the word willingly worship. And to me, it says, even if you're not there, the struggle and the journey to get to willingly worship is worthy.
Yeah, the space between commanded and willing is worth a journey between those two. Beautiful. Henry, did you want to add? Or is that a stretch? Okay. Susan, go for it.
Well, so it says commanding us how to recite the Shema. So the commandment is recite the Shema. And willingly is worship God. Those are two very, very, very different things, in my opinion.
Okay, one is about recitation and one is about worship. Okay, turn to page 116, which is Ve'ahavta. And take a look at that first paragraph in Hebrew or in English. And we know it, but I don't know how often we look at it and dive deep into it, because it's one of many prayers that we say in a morning service. In your opinion, there's no right or wrong, I'm asking your opinion. In your opinion, what's the most important line of Ve'ahavta?
When I was studying for my bat mitzvah, I did my Devar Torah just before I chanted the Ve'ahavta, and I studied with Rabbi Levine, and we looked at Rashi. And he told me, he said, Rashi says that God commands us to love God, not our children, no one else. And that's what this said. I'm still perplexed to this day with that. You shall love Adonai your God with all your heart. Not saying any, and when he said this to me, I was like, wow. How do you deal with this? It's not your children, especially a woman, the child you gave birth to. You're not told to love that child, but to love God. That's
beautiful. Arlene?
Yeah, I was going to say the exact same thing. I thought the first line is the most important. You shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, soul, and with all your might. And everything else is just, additional info. But I think that's the basis.
Great, Naomi and then Henry.
But segging on what you said, and Rabbi Levine's not a mother, and you are, obviously, no one needs to command you to love your child. So it's not that they're privileging who to love and who not to, but you need this remonstration while you don't need it for your child. So it has to be denoted.
Okay. Henry?
I was going to say that the most important line in here is impress them on your children, but I always learned it as teach it to your children, because if you don't teach it to your children, it won't continue.
I was going to agree with you, Henry, about teaching it to your children, but I also wanted to say, follow up on what Naomi said, that if we love God with all of our heart and all of our soul and all of our might, everything else follows. So the one thought, the first thought that I had after I gave birth to my son was like, oh my God, if anyone has doubts about believing in God, let them give birth to a child. It's like, there has to be a God from what I just went through. I mean, it was like this, can't speak, gigantic epiphany. I was so overwhelmed with the thought, how can one not believe in God after this? This is the greatest miracle of all. Okay. Who else?
So I want to draw the connection between the first line of Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha v'chol me'odecha. You shall love Adonai your God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, and this translation is with all of your might. But I think me'odecha in modern Hebrew, me'od is the word for very much. If you would say tov me'od, something is very good. It's the word that means over the top. So we might translate it as with all of your muchness, all of your everything. And then we get instructions for how you do that. You impress them upon your children. You recite them when you stay at home, when you're away, when you lie down, when you get up. You bind them as a sign. We know that there's the next part of, another part of Ve'ahavta where we talk about tzitzit as a sign on our fringes and on our clothes. And I think, Maxine, what you said is really interesting, right? That if you love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your muchness, the rest of the things fall into place. That the other things are outward signs and symbols of that love for God. You shall love Adonai your God, therefore take care of the stranger. You shall love Adonai your God, therefore leave the corners of your field for the poor. You shall love Adonai your God, therefore set up a system of courts that prioritize fairness and justice, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And all of that stems from Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha. There are very, very few times in the Torah that we are commanded to believe or feel a certain thing. Most of our commandments have to do with action. And Shema and Ve'ahavta is that one perhaps exception, and it goes in with the 10 Commandments as well. You shall have one God. I am that God. Almost everything else doesn't require any belief. And I would argue even loving Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might is something that you can do as an agnostic. It actually doesn't ask about our belief. It asks about our actions. And Ve'ahavta is a prayer that we say all the time. And Va'et Chanan, this week's Torah portion, I think is an opportunity for us to dig a little deeper into the words of Ve'ahavta and to let it be one that rises to the surface for us a little more than other times when perhaps we look at Ve'ahavta, because it specifically comes from this week's Torah portion and it's traveled all the way to the 21st century with us to be one of the central prayers of Judaism. So a lot more to say on Ve'ahavta, of course, as always, but we'll pause here in our study as we continue next week and the next couple of weeks with the rest of Deuteronomy and Moses' final speeches to the Israelite people. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you.